What is a microdiscipline? And could this be a key to transformation? Hey folks, I'm Annette of AnnetteLeonard.com, back again with Chronic Wellness. Um, it's the start of 2024, and as per usual, the new year has people talking about resolutions and the beginning of a calendar year. And I think the allure of a brand new start of a year where you see 12 pages of a calendar yawning out in front of you seems like an invitation to make big changes. And I have now been on the planet long enough to know that when I make grand gestures, when I vow to make huge overarching changes, more often than not, the code for its demise is written into the way that I began, which is to say that it is really rare for those sweeping gestures and those giant promises of starting this week, I'm going to get up 3 days and I'm going to go work out at a time that I've never woken up before, doing exercises that I don't even yet know, with a commitment and a fervor, the likes of which I've never seen before, is, for me, the greatest way to fail. And so I was introduced to the idea by one of my favorite poets, David Whyte, the idea of a micro-discipline. What is a micro-discipline? It's just what it sounds like. It is a miniature discipline. It is the way to make incremental, minuscule, infinitesimal, tiny changes in our life that over the course can make a very big difference. It's often said that we are our decisions. We are our actions. And yet, most of the time, we're creatures of habit. And it is not a simple thing to change our habits. And it's for that reason that I think this idea of micro-discipline is very valuable, because waking up and changing our whole mind, not simple. But waking up and deciding to make tiny changes, for me, is oftentimes a better way to approach the system. So here are some examples of what I mean by micro changes. Rather than saying, I'm going to get up and start a whole mindfulness practice where I'm going to sit on the cushion for 30 minutes, 5 to 7 days a week, I might decide I'm going to set my alarm to go off once a day. And when it goes off, I'm going to do a body scan. And in so doing, I'm beginning a mindfulness practice. No, I'm not doing it 30 minutes at a time. But the seeds of its renewal is in its doability, is in the fact that an alarm goes off, I turn it off, and in that moment, I just pause, I take a few deep breaths, and I do that body scan. When I say, I'm going to change the whole way I eat, I'm going to eliminate gluten and sugar and dairy and caffeine and simple carbs and all the nightshades and then I wind up with just like a carrot rattling around in my belly, crying at the grocery store, angry at my spouse or children, going to bed 3 hours before bedtime, hangry and distraught. And the next day I give up because I didn't have a plan. Whereas if I decide a sight I want to set myself toward, I'm curious about this way of eating, and I decide I'm going to menu plan for one meal that week, eating that way, then I might be setting myself up for success because I haven't bet the whole farm on eating that way. I've just decided, hey, I'm going to go on Pinterest and find a meal that represents eating that way and see if I can do it for a meal. Or deciding about the kind of boundaries that I need to have for my own health, and then not trying to set those boundaries with the hardest people in my life, who might be my family or my spouse or my best friend, but I'm going to try to set them with somebody who feels lower stakes in my life first. Maybe my coworker or the mailman. You get the gist. That by setting these small, accomplishable tasks in which we can have a win, and then that can build our sense of accomplishment, our sense of desire, our sense of worth, our sense of deciding whether or not this is actually the path for us. Like, oh, I got up this morning and I tried that 10-minute chair yoga program on YouTube, and I realized I hate chair yoga. So no, that's not the exercise program for me. I'm not going to do that 7 days a week. I need to figure out something else I like more. Is that Tai Chi? Is that Pilates? Is that something else? But good thing I didn't decide I should buy a year's worth of classes at the yoga center. Oftentimes, research has shown us that the things we think that are going to make us happy are not the things that do make us happy. And so by setting these miniature, accomplishable, small, attainable tasks that then build up into bigger sea change. I remember learning that the way massive ships change direction are in part due to these tiny things on the side that they stick out that are called trim tabs. And trim tabs start to slow the boat, create drag on one side or the other accordingly to help the boat then shift in the water and change directions. And so I like to think of these micro habits like trim tabs in the water, just sticking that little paddle in if you're, somebody who does paddle sports, or creating that little bit of drag in an area of my life where I used to just move thoughtlessly instead of moving with intention, and changing perhaps the course of my life because I set my alarm and decided to do a body scan, or I woke up today and decided to do it differently. So I submit to you, as an alternative to resolutions, microdisciplines. So what have you tried? What's worked? Have you created a microdiscipline? What are you doing differently? Or what microdiscipline might you start with? I'd love to hear from you. share it in the comments below. And as ever, like, comment, subscribe, forward this to someone you know who needs it. And I'll see you next week. Until we're together again, thanks for being here and be well.